Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I had some time on my hand and I wanted to do a video that I once did, but YouTube, in its infinite wisdom, deleted. Don't ask me why, it had something to do with I clicked on yes, it's for children, I suppose, and it was not for children because I sweared a lot in the video. But let's try not to swear in this one. I want to make. I just had time and I wanted to write about PCs, from my first PC to my current PC. I like, obviously, I like PCs and I like watching YouTube videos and people talking about PCs. So let's talk. My first PC. Well, I don't remember very well. I remember using it, but I didn't have any idea about PCs at that time. I just wanted to play games. I started with consoles. I remember having my first console was a SNES, a Super Nintendo, and it was awesome. Then I went to a Nintendo 64, which was even more awesome. Then I went a little bit backwards to the PS1, which was awesome because the games, the storage the cartridges for this Nintendo 64 were very small. I don't remember how big, but they were small. But for the PlayStation 1, I remember it was about 700 megabytes. The CD was 700 megabytes, maybe even more. But the Nintendo 64, what was the cartridge size? Nintendo 64. I know it had better graphics than the PlayStation 1, but the cartridge size was a very big issue. Game pack size, yeah, 32 to 512 megabits, bytes, what the fudge? It was smaller than the PlayStation 1 that I remember. I had fun with the PlayStation 1. Then I got the PlayStation 2, which was awesome, but the laser had died on me and I sold it in parts. But I remember my first PC was at the time of PlayStation 2, which I'm gonna try to write here about. It was an Athlon. The CPU was an Athlon, a single core Athlon. I believe it was a 2600. I don't remember very well, but it was like that. And it had 256 megabytes of RAM. I had a 80 gigabyte hard drive. And the GPU, oh my god. The GPU was, I want to say a 9600. Is there such a thing? Something era appropriate to the Athlon single core CPU. And I had fun with it. And I sold my PS2 for RAM, for 256 megabytes of RAM, I remember at that time. And I had 512 gigs of RAM, which was crazy. And the 80 gigabyte hard drive was also crazy at the time. What did I do then? Then I upgraded my GPU. No, yes, no, no, yes. I got an XT 800, I believe, something. And it ran the same like the 9600. I don't know if the XT 800 was slower, faster, but it ran the same. And I was disappointed with this upgrade, but that's what I ran. And this GPU died on me. And I was very disappointed about that, but then I got, I can't remember. I got an 8500, I believe, GT. Yeah, I know it had 512 megabytes of VRAM, and it was so awesome. But I believe this CPU couldn't handle that. Yeah, this CPU. I remember as Assassin's Creed came out, and it ran like shit. And that was because of the CPU. But in my infinite wisdom, I upgraded to an core. No, a Celeron. I don't remember which one it was. I remember that it had 2.9 gigahertz of speed on a MSI board with the same 512 megs of RAM, with the same 8500 GT, and it worked like a charm. I was so it was working good. It was not that much better, but it was good. But in Assassin's Creed, it still sucked because Assassin's Creed wanted the 2-core CPU. So what did I do? I got a Core 2 Duo E4600, which was impressive at that time. It was running like crazy. I was super happy with that. Then I got next upgrade was a 1 GB of RAM. Then I upgraded to 2 GB of RAM. Then I upgraded to 4 GB of RAM. Then I made a little break here. 4 GB is enough. And me, idiot, at the time went to 8 GB of RAM, which cost a leg and an arm, and I didn't see any improvements. And the entirety of the time I was using this PC, I never used more than 4 gigs of RAM. But because of the difference between 512 GB, 1 GB, 2 GB, and 4 GB that I had at the time, I thought, yeah, cool, 8 GB will even be more fast. But no, 4 GB were more than enough. It was a waste of money to get 8 GB, but hey. Then I upgraded to a 90, I want to say 9600 GT or something like that. I know it wasn't very impressive, but that's what I had. Then I got another upgrade. It was a Core 2 Quad, a Q8400, which was also an awesome upgrade because at the time I remember I tried to play on the 4600, I tried to play GTA 4 and it was running like shit. And when I got the CPU, I finally had I had low FPS, but it was so much stable, and I had a little bit more FPS, but the GPU was holding me back. So I got the 9800 GT with 1 GB of VRAM. That was so cool, but because normally a 9800 GT comes with 512, I believe, megabytes of RAM and VRAM, and I had a 1 GB one, and this was so cool. But something prompted me to change something here. I don't remember. Yeah, I was playing Battlefield 3. But before I got the 9800 GT, I upgraded to a GTX 560. I believe it was a TI. No, it was a 560, a normal 560. But it was so awesome. It was great. I played Battlefield 3 and I had fun playing Battlefield 3. Battlefield 3 was an eye-opening game to me. I played Battlefield 2, Battlefield 2142, but Battlefield 3 was so nice looking and awesome. It was the first game that not the first game, but the first game where I had a lot of friends online, a platoon and a clan. It was so awesome. Then, yeah, updates came from Battlefield 3 and the system ran worse. I mean, the FPS were bad. At that time, I was happy if I had 50, 60 FPS, but I was dropping below 45 on medium settings. It was a mix of medium and high settings at the time. And I upgraded to a 660 Ti, a 3 GB one, because at the time, I was thinking 660 Ti or a 7950, but I was already in love with NVIDIA, which currently I really don't like, but at that time I was loving NVIDIA. And I bought the 3 GB one because they had an issue, because the 2 GB one had 1.5 gig of VRAM fast and the rest was slow, like the GTX 970 issue later on. But it was a cool GPU. It really was cool. It was a WindForce one. It was a 3-slot one. Let me try to find the picture of it. GTX 660 Ti 3 GB WindForce images. My internet is very slow, but that's the one. Yeah, that's the one. It was so cool. It was awesome. I had a lot of fun playing Battlefield 3 on that. But yeah, the 660 Ti. I got the 660 Ti, but it wasn't really giving me much more FPS than the 560 because CPU bottleneck. I didn't realize at the time that there was such a thing, but I knew about it, but I didn't believe that the 8400 was so weak for the 660 Ti. I remember selling my 560 Ti to a very good friend and cousin of mine. I needed the money for the 660, and he had an FX 8150, with the 560, which was faster than my 660 Ti with the 8400. So I said, oh my god, let's get an FX. I know at that time everybody was hating on the FX, but I didn't mind that. I was thinking like future-proofing with 8 cores. I was thinking i5 3570K, but the boards were so expensive. So I got the FX 8350. I got 16 gigs of 1866 RAM DDR3. I had, at that time actually, I already had a 3 terabyte hard drive, which was wow. And I had a 256 SSD, a SATA one, Samsung Evo, with the 660 Ti. Now, the 3669 Ti, that's an interesting GPU. 660 Ti, 3GB one. And the board, and the choice of the board, it was cheaper, and it was a Gigabyte UD3, which supported SLI. That's why I got it. I was thinking, two 660 Ti's. That was cool at the time, looking at people's posting pictures with their dual GPU setups that look so sexy. And yeah, at that time I had the 750 watt power supply from Chieftech, I believe, doesn't matter. It was a very good PSU. But I was thinking to myself, well, if I'm gonna do ever SLI, I need a better PSU. But actually, looking back at it, no, 750 was perfectly fine. But I got the 1000 watt Cooler Master PSU, which I use to this day. So it was a very good, it was expensive, but thinking back on it, it was a very good investment because I use it even today. Then, and the FX CPU ran perfectly on Battlefield 3. I confess, IPC was bad. Some games that liked IPC more than core threads that was the majority of the games at the time. But I bought that CPU to last me a lot, because when I do a upgrade, I make a plan to keep it for 10 years. I don't succeed in keeping it for 10 years, but that's my plan always. Money's tight, right? And I was super happy in Battlefield 3. 660 Ti was totally 100% used by the FX. It was awesome. Then I did the crazy thing. I went 2 GPUs. Oh my god, that was so expensive, but it was so worth it because Battlefield 3 and its SLI profiles were awesome. I had so much fun with this setup. But where did the issue creep in? Yeah, newer games, SLI profiles were getting worse and worse, and the FX was like, oh my god. And I decided let's get rid of SLI, because actually I didn't got rid of SLI. That I got rid of this board. This board was such a shit board. I hate Gigabyte. I had liked Gigabyte until that time, but this board gave me so much issues. My RAM was only working at 1600. I couldn't get it to 1866. I had a big cooler on it, and I experimented with overclocking. I was only getting 4.2 gigahertz on all cores. That's the max this board could do at that time. And this is a badly binned CPU that I had, but 4.2 was its max. And I had some issues with the drivers, because this Gigabyte UD3 had an FE BIOS that fucked up with the NVIDIA updated driver and didn't work. I used old drivers. Having old drivers with an SLI setup, no thank you. And I upgraded my board to an Asus Sabertooth 990 FX, I believe. It was such an awesome and expensive board. I fell in love with Asus at that time. Asus Sabertooth 990 FX. Let me try to find an image of it. It was such an awesome, heavy, and yeah, that's the board. Oh, it's so cool. It had so much metal on it. I remember it was the revision 2.0. That's the one. On this image, it doesn't look so cool, but it is so cool. Everything metal, so heavy, so cool. SLI, RAM. Yeah, as soon as I got that board, the RAM was working perfectly at 1866. and I increased my overclock to 4.4 stable. I don't remember the voltage, something pretty normal, but this is such a bad CPU bin. I was imagining when I got the FX to go 5 gigahertz, right? No, no way. Without water cooling, without a very good bin CPU. But this board is capable of a lot of crazy stuff. It was such an awesome board. And I ran this setup, played billions of games, but the majority of my time spent gaming was on Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4, Battlefield 1, which I didn't like, but in retrospective it was okay. Battlefield 5 ran like shit on because of the SLI setup, because of the SLI profiles, but in time they had better profiles and it worked okay. And even the FX worked okay on Battlefield 5. Everything was working like a charm. I was happy. Then came Battlefield 2042, ran like dog shit. I remember Battlefield 5 on Ultra and Battlefield 2042 on very low to have the same FPS, and it was a terrible experience. But I decided it's time for an upgrade, and in my infinite wisdom, I upgraded the GPU to an... Actually, it was a good GPU, GTX 1070 gigabyte one. And the awesome thing about it, it had 8 gigabytes of VRAM. Wow, what the fuck? I mean, half of my RAM, right? This was such a cool card. Gigabyte. It was such a cool card. But I didn't realize that because I was so in love with the FX. Everybody was hating on it, but I was so in love with it. I remember experimenting with the 4.6. Yeah! At the end of using it, I had 4.6 on it. 4.7 was pushing it, but 4.6 was attainable. Because, yeah, I remember I got an AIO for it. A 120 AIO from Arctic Freezer, was it, or something like. It was so good. It's cooled the FX perfectly. I even have the fans of that AIO in my current PC as intake. Let's try to find the image of that. I know I liked it so much. What the Arctic Sabertooth. Asus Arctic Sabertooth. Freezer. Where is it? This is that's the one that I had. There's a revision of this one, but I had. Yeah, that's the one. It looks stupid without the fans on it. Yeah, that's the one. It was awesome, and these fans are awesome. These fans are cool. That's what I ran, and I remember I changed that. I sold that AIO, and I got oh my god, I forgot it. I was so in love with the cooler, but I forgot it because it didn't matter. It was so expensive. Wait, it's the gray one. The Germans make it. It's not gray. It's beige. Whatever. Oh my god, my brain stopped. It was the ultimate CPU cooler. I bought it used. Best CPU cooler. My brain stopped working. Images. Hello. What? What's the name of it? My brain is not braining. Noctua, for fuck's... Sorry for swearing. It was a Noctua, the ND1450, the biggest one at the time. I bought it used, but the guy that sold me didn't have the mounts for the AM3, so I did some shenanigans, and it didn't make perfect contact, but I had better performance with the AIO. And I sold the AIO because I was afraid that it will die, so I don't know. I sold the AIO to a guy that I know, and it still works, so that was a mistake getting rid of that AIO. I was, at that time, I had some panic that it will leak, that it will die on me, and I sold it, and I got the Noctua, the big one. And the temperatures were better on the AIO, so Noctua, I don't know, it was a long dream for me to have a Noctua CPU cooler, but fuck it. Noctua, personally for me, doesn't exist anymore. I had a bad experience because it didn't have the perfect mount, but it doesn't matter. It's not that much better cooling. There's cheaper and equally or better coolers than the Noctua. But I digress. And still, yeah, Battlefield 2042, terrible performance, even with that GPU. But 99% of games that I played, the GTX 1070 was very highly utilized, and I was happy. But I must digress. The better choice, actually, the maximum GPU, which I realized only later, is a 1060, a GTX 1060 or an RX 580. Everything above that for 1080p, everything above those above the RX 580 or the GTX 1060 is overkill for the FX 8350. I forget how to speak, but again, I digress. It is okay. I had a bottleneck, but not so serious. I had a solid overclock, but the IPC was starting to catch up with me because, or was it the IPC? Yeah, it was already old. And I kept this setup a very long time ago, and then I decided another stupid thing. I didn't have money, but I wanted to play Battlefield 2042, at least above 60 FPS. And I got the i3 12100F. That was such a mistake. It has had excellent IPC. It was a 4-core 8-thread CPU, which was definitely more than double speed of the FX. Maybe I would even say quadruple. But in all games, of course, this was better than the FX. But in Battlefield 2042, I was getting the same bad performance, and I was totally confused. Right? Yeah, the board. I got an Asus Prime, so a very cheap board, but it was expensive actually, because this is Alder Lake. No, yeah, I don't remember. Whatever. The board for this CPU, the cheapest one, the Asus Prime one. Yeah, and I upgraded actually to 32 gigabytes of DDR4 now. Whoa, yeah, from 16 to 32. I didn't felt difference, but I believe anybody building a PC, I mean, you can use it with 16 gigs, but in the next 1, 2, or 3 years, you will have to have 32 gigs to play serious gaming, I suppose. You can get away with 16, surely, but 32 is a very good sweet spot. 64 gigs is a lot, actually. For gaming, it's overkill. I don't know, maybe for Star Citizen or something like that, but 32 gigs it is. That was the plan. And I had a stock cooler for the stock cooling for the 12100F, because it's a very low-powered CPU, which I liked. Because coming from the FX 8350 to an i3 12100F, it was like, whoa, it doesn't draw power. It's awesome. And from that time on, after the 12100F, I liked low-power CPUs actually. And because I had such a bad history with, I mean, not bad history, but I wanted to say overclocking the FX. It was an exciting thing for me, but the heat was terrible. And after getting this CPU with that much speed, I always recommend get the newer CPU, a small, low drawings watt CPU, than a big. I don't know. I don't like anything above 65 watts of power draw. Yeah, stock cooling was enough, but I put an Hyper 212 on it. I used one. I had one lying around. Just a minute. My wife is calling. Reci, ženo.
Vicko,
Radim
jesi
nešto,
ti
reci.
zaboravio u mom salonu sat?
Zaboravio sat. Ne,
Da nisi stavio negdje.
ne.
Aj kad dođeš, sad imam Boškovu ženu, Milkicu,
Da.
u salonu, slučajno ovdje pored ovog masažera nađeš
Ok,
sat.
ok, pogledat ću kad budem imao vremena. Aj, radim sad
Da
nešto.
nije bio trener, tako da...
Vidit ćemo, ali radim sad nešto. Aj, ljubim, čao.
Važi, jesi vi kući?
Jesmo, čao.
A, dobro.
Sorry about that, my wife called. I don't want to edit this video. I don't like editing stuff. Sorry about that. Where were I? Yeah, Hyper 212. I didn't have the mount for the CPU, but I did some shenanigans. I can't remember what mount I used, but I fitted it perfectly. And I mean, Hyper 212 with the 12100F is stupid, overkill, but I had it lying around, so why not? What else? What did I upgrade? Yeah, storage-wise, hard drives. I had a, I don't, yeah, I bought 1 terabyte Kingston, whatever, 1 terabyte SSD for games. Awesome, cheap. But this one is faster than the Kingston one, but it it's okay. What else? Yeah, yeah. This was rocking. And Battlefield 2042. I had issues in 128 player matches. In 64 player matches, no issues. 128 player matches ran like dog shit. That disappointed me. And the cousin that I sold him the 560 a billion times ago sold me a 2700X, a Ryzen 7 2700X, on an awesome MSI X470 board. Cool. And it had only 16 gigabytes of RAM, but then I put it had actually two times 8 gigabytes RAM, but then I put 4 times, that was the next upgrade for this CPU, for this system, 4 times 8 gigabytes, and they were 3200. But to my disappointment, when you have 2 sticks with the 2700X, it ran slower, 28 something something. Sorry, 2 sticks were running at 3200, but 4 sticks were running at, I don't remember, something 2867, I want to say, something speed. I took the GPU with that. I sold the, no, yeah, actually I sold this system without the GPU. Then I transferred the GPU, transferred this awesome power supply. The board, yeah, that was an awesome board. What else? All the stuff, the hard drives, I won't write this. I transferred it, and the cooler was the Prism one, the stock one. It looked pretty. Prism. I don't know if you write Prism like that. It doesn't matter. It worked okay, but this CPU had a quite solid power draw. Let's check it. It was more than the i3, that's for sure. And you felt it. I mean, the temperatures were high. I don't know the clocks. I after the FX 8350, I didn't care anymore about clocks. Just that it works. And I must admit, the 2700X ran like hell on Battlefield 2042 on 128 players matches, and I was very happy with that. Power draw, yeah, 105. That's like 50 watts more than the i3. Actually, even more when it boosts, right? Doesn't matter. It was awesome, but I felt the absence of the IPC of the i3. I mean, in games, fortunately, it didn't matter. I felt it in Windows actually more, but hey, that was my side grade, downgrade, upgrade thing that I did. I sold this system without the GPU. I had another GPU lying around, an old one that I sold the system to. Yeah, and this was awesome. This was cool. Ran like crazy. Then I had the idea of getting my son another on PC also, because he started to play games. He was interested, and I didn't want to rob him from that cool gaming experience. So he got, actually, I must go back. I had an issue with this board, not with this board, with me. I broke this board, or I thought I broke it, because this speed of RAM, I was thinking, hey, maybe I should update the BIOS on the MSI board, the X470. It was called gaming, I believe, and I thought upgrading the BIOS. So, in my infinite wisdom, I updated it to a beta BIOS, which I did knowingly, but it fucked up my PC. I had so weird issues after updating that beta BIOS, like it didn't want to start. I had to clear my CMOS and whatnot, and it was happening because here where I live we have power outages, and when I lose power, it didn't want to start. I need to clear CMOS to start it again, and I didn't mind it. We didn't have that often power outages, so it was okay. But one time it didn't want to start. And the troubleshooting was crazy at that time for me, because I had a few GPUs running around. And another PC. Actually, I had this PC still at the time my daughter was using it. I exchanged GPUs. I tried RAM sticks. I tried everything. It was very, very time consuming and annoying, but I realized, hey, the GPU is dead. It gave me an error that I have no GPU. Later on, because I sold this for very cheap, because I sold it like broken, but it was working. It's just the beta BIOS fucks things up, that the board wants to boot to the internal iGPU. The 2700X doesn't have an iGPU. Fuck it, stupid mistake. The other guy got it working. I don't care. I got an Asus TUF B450. Should have gotten a B550, but at that time I didn't realize that PCI. I thought the B550 and 450 were practically the same, only I thought the B550 was supporting newer CPUs out of the box, but no, the PCI is 3.0 on the 450, but it doesn't matter that much. There's almost no difference. Only because of the NVMe, I'm a little bit sorry, but because of that, but not so much, because I got 1 terabyte NVMe that goes to, I want to say 4,000. Yeah, it can go 4,000. It's a slower PCI Express 4.0 NVMe, but I can do only 3,500, but it's okay. Well, this board is okay. Because I had the Sabertooth, I expected more from this board, but it's not a Sabertooth. It's a tough board, but it's not a Sabertooth board. But it's an okay board. I like it. And after getting this board, the RAM still didn't want to work at 3200 speeds, but then I realized it was because of the CPU. It doesn't support it, at least not with 4 sticks. And I wanted to buy my son a PC. I don't want to write the components that I got him. It was a smaller PSU ASRock board, but I got myself a 5700X. Why 5700X? I wanted the 5800X, but it was a higher wattage CPU, and I only had the Prism cooler, and I don't know, the Prism cooler was able to cool this like crazy, but I got Thermaltake Peerless Assassin. I don't want to write it. I don't know how to spell it. Thermaltake Peerless Assassin, an awesome overkill cooler for this CPU. What else? Assassin. Do you spell assassin with 2 S? I don't know. I guess so. Yeah. I felt the difference coming from the 2700X to the 5700X, and it used less power to do so. I did the PPO thing. I'm not a pro at these new boards. I liked overclocking on the old FX. It was much simpler for me at that time. I turned PBO on and I did some minus something over, I believe minus 25. Is it volts? 0.20, I don't know. On all cores, it works like a charm. It boosts a little bit more. It's cool. And I don't want to, I can overclock it further. I have a profile in my BIOS actually on this board. I copied it from some forums, and it was really pushing the CPU further, and it's faster, but I don't want to do that because it runs all my games awesome, and I don't want to change that. Actually, I must go back to the i3. I got another GPU here on RTX, my first contact with RTX 2070 MSI Z. Cool GPU, but only 8 gigs of VRAM. That sucks. Yeah, and that GPU went here, actually, to this system. Me personally, I don't think there's a big difference between the 1070 and the 2070. Only because of the RTX stuff, but I don't use it. The 2070 is too weak to use ray tracing, so the 1070 and 2070, I don't know, maybe 20% difference, 30 in performance. But this GPU looks awesome. Let me try to find it. It looks really awesome. I know it's now in my son's PC, and it sags a lot because it's so heavy. I need to put something to remove the sag, but I'm too lazy, and it works, so. But I know it looks so awesome. It's such a big clunky GPU. Yeah, that's the one. It looks a lot of RGB here, but you can't see that when you install this, the GPU. Are there pictures for this GPU? Gallery, yes. Yeah, it's awesome. It's really cool. This Gaming Z, I believe that's the max clock or something. But I'm getting very. Actually, I tested the clocks on this GPU and they were not so good. But I never changed the thermal paste, and it's a used GPU. So, but I don't want to disassemble it. I'm in fear of breaking. So a little bit lower clocks, but it works like a charm. I digress. So okay, 2017 this in that PC, that CPU awesome, but everything is awesome. Yeah, and when I got the 5700X, RAM was working like a charm. 4 sticks at 3200. Super happy with that. My son is using now the 2700X on an ASRock cheap board, but it works well with the 2070 because I upgraded. That was expensive for me, but I got myself a 7900 GRE Sapphire Pulse. The GPU that I wanted to do actually was different. I wanted to do a 7800 XT. It just came out and it was cool. And I wanted the Asus TUF. Do you say Asus or Asus? I don't know. Picture? Yeah, I have a TUF board, and I thought to myself, oh, a TUF GPU. And I like the looks of it very much. It's so industrial and cool. I don't know. I liked it. But it was so expensive, and for the price of the 7800 XT Asus TUF, I got the 7900 GRE Pulse Pure. No, Pulse Pure. I'm not into white GPUs. My case is white, but just because I don't like to change stuff that works, and I got it used and whatever. But this GPU doesn't look half that bad. It's bad and it's very large. So I was thinking 78. Yeah, I need to go back. Nvidia fucked their prices up. I know their cards are good. DLSS, frame generation, and ray tracing better on Nvidia. I'm an old fart, it would seem. I don't care about ray tracing. I looked at some examples how it looks better, but me personally, either I'm blind to it or I don't want to see it. Whatever the case is, I don't care about it. And AMD cards, the entire 7000 series is so intriguing to me. I was thinking 7900 XT. It had 20 gigs of VRAM, cool, but it was so much more expensive than the 7800 that has 16 gigs of VRAM. But 60 gigs of VRAM on the 7900 GRE and the 7800 XT, it's cool because I come from a 8 gigabyte VRAM GPU, which was okay for me. But I realized that the newer games want 16 gigabytes of VRAM. Especially, I got the monitor and used Asus 1440p at 144 Hz, and you need the VRAM. I mean, you can get by at 1080p, no problem. 8 gigabytes of VRAM, 1080p, you will not have issues. But in time, issues will arise. But 16 gigs of VRAM is, I believe, perfect. For the consumer, it's perfect. Now, the 7900 XT was so much more expensive for just 4 gigs of VRAM more than the 7800 XT. So that decided itself. I mean, the 7900 XTX is also cool, but it's even more expensive. So in my budget, it was a 7800 XT or a 7900 GRE. Now, I was studying this. I was researching this. The main difference between the 7800 and the 7900 GPUs are the memory bandwidth. The 7800 XT has more memory bandwidth, but the 7900 GRE, being a cut down 7900 XT, retained almost all the stuff from the 7900 XT except of its memory bandwidth. It was cut a lot, but you can actually overclock the memory on the 7900Gs solidly, But I don't want to do overclocking. I want this to last me as much as I can. I experimented with some memory overclocking. I did have much luck. Maybe it's this sample of the GPU. I got this GPU. But I don't care much about it because the GPU is running great and I don't want to change anything. When I feel that my performance is bad, then I will start experimenting with overclocking. It will be fun and interesting to see the difference. But at the moment, the 5700X CPU and the 7900 GRE, it's working perfectly for me. I mean, I play, I don't know, I don't play actually that much. I didn't have time to play, but I found myself playing with my son and my daughter Fortnite. For of all things possible, I play Fortnite. I know it's a kids game, but we are having fun together and we are winning, and it's awesome. What was I saying? Yeah, GPU cool. So I mean, the 7800 XT is very similar to the 7900 performance, although the 7900 GRE has about, I don't know, I want to say 10-12% more, it's more faster. I don't know, you can't go wrong even with the 7800 XT or the 7900 GRE. I mean, you get a little bit more performance for a little bit more money, but they're both best bang for the bucks GPU. At least at the time I was buying them. That was, oh my god, I don't know, half a year? I don't remember. That's a great GPU. Now you have the 9070, I believe, want to say XT, GRE, whatever. They're coming out and they're cool, but I don't plan to change that. They're not that much faster than this. I don't plan to change this anytime soon. The entire setup, actually, I don't plan to change anytime soon. So, the 2070 lives in my son's PC with 2700X. He has a 650 watt power supply, but that's enough. What else? Yeah, and I was talking and I forgot, I changed the subject about the CPUs. I was thinking 5800X, and as I was saying, I want a low power CPU, and you get almost 99% performance with this CPU. PBO on, you get, in Cinebench I did a test and it's almost the same, if not better, when you turn PBO on than the 5800X. It's interesting. But the X3D processors with more cache, they're awesome, but I don't like them running at lower clocks, which you can feel. I mean, I'm not doing any rendering and stuff, but I saw tests where the 5700X or vice versa 5800X beat the 5800 X3D, and that's silly for me. I know if you only do gaming, yeah, go for the X3D CPUs, but the 5800 X3D was so much more expensive, so I got this one. I think this is the perfect bang for the buck CPU at the time that I bought it. And as I got this CPU, it wasn't even 2 or 3 days, the 5700 X3D came out, and that was so annoying to me. But looking at benchmarks, especially at 1440p, there's not much. There's very little difference. Some people on YouTube are showing more difference. Others show almost no difference. Yeah, sure. If you're buying, I don't know, if you're getting 5000 series AMD CPU, yeah, sure, go for the X3D. But I don't mind it. Maybe one day when the price goes down, I will upgrade to it and give my son the 5700X, but I doubt it. I would rather upgrade my son's 2700X with the same CPU that I have. It's cheaper and it does its stuff very well. But altogether, well, I'm thinking about my next upgrade. Well, I need to think about this PSU. It's very old, but I don't want to change it. It's working. But it's probably working so long and so good because I'm not even using half of its rated power drawing thingy. Maybe 600 watts at most. So that's why it's lasting so long. RAM-wise, yeah, I wanted to have 36, but I bought when I bought the 2700X, I had two 3206, so I didn't want to make a fuss about it and just got another two, so I won't be changing that. But I digress. Next upgrade. I don't know. AM5, definitely. I don't care about Intel. They're having so much issues. I mean, for a long time, I was a Intel fanboy, an Intel and Nvidia fanboy. The first one that escaped me from me buying them, it was Intel because they were expensive. You didn't get that much performance for that much price. And in time, looking at today, their CPUs don't make sense. They only make sense for those that are doing professional work and I don't know, rendering or something like that. But I will always go for an AM5, AMD CPU, at least this time around. I don't know. If you game, I don't see a reason to go to an Intel CPU. Doesn't make sense to me. Now I'm a AMD, actually, I wanted to say AMD CPU fanboy, but I'm an AMD GPU and CPU fanboy, and I was an Intel Nvidia fanboy. So how about that? And don't get me started about Nvidia. Their GPUs, their prices, they're crazy. I mean, AMD are not selling at MSRP, but they're still better than Nvidia when it comes to price to performance, at least in my humble opinion. Next CPU, yeah, if I upgrade, it will be an AM5, but I don't plan to change this. If I can run games at low 1080p, I won't change it, but I don't know, we shall see. Maybe something dies. But if I would upgrade, it would be an AM5 CPU. I don't know which one. Probably a 9700X. RAM-wise, I don't know. It's smart to go double. Always double when you upgrade. So if I have 32, it would be 64 gigabytes of RAM. The next upgrade. But that won't happen anytime soon. Of course, an appropriate board. And now board, because I like those low drawing CPUs now that give you a lot of performance. So the board would be, I don't know, maybe something cheap, something that's not that important. You don't need a crazy board with the low wattage CPU, and you save money. That makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, yeah, expensive boards are cool, but they're expensive like hell. But some cheap board that fits an one or two NVMe's and had four RAM slots, maybe even that's no longer important, because let's say I get a board with 2 RAM slots. You put two 32 gig in there, and then you say, oh, you made a mistake, you cannot upgrade your RAM anymore. Wait a minute, I have 64 gigs of RAM. What will I upgrade to? 128? I mean, at that time where you require 128 gigabytes of RAM for gaming or whatnot, this CPU will be so obsolete, you will need to change the CPU on the board. So maybe I want to say the next board will be a cheap board with 2 RAM slots. And as long as this CPU is relevant, 64 gigs of RAM will be relevant. Now GPU wise, I don't know. It's a very tough thing to talk about today. Definitely AMD. I don't know. What's it called? The 9070 XT, I believe. But actually no. I believe wait a minute. Is the 7900 XTX faster than the 9070 XT, or am I crazy? Yeah, the 79 generally offers better performance, 10% higher performance, and more VRAM. Yeah. The 9070 XT is more affordable. Well, I don't know. Me personally, I would get the 9070 XT, but I don't know. GPUs are coming, stuff for PCs in general, CPUs, GPUs, everything is going so fast. I mean, they need to make money, so they're releasing always new stuff. We say new, but they had that stuff 20 years ago probably, but doesn't matter. I digress. I don't know. That GPU with that CPU, I guess. Power supply, I don't know. Something that runs with it. Well, that was it. If somebody watched and listened to this to the end, I salute you. And that was my history with PCs up until now. And now, I'm gonna do some gaming. Bye guys. Stay safe.